Hello, hello, fellow dreamers, and welcome back to the Dream Your Life podcast. I am so grateful that you're here today. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a really good episode because it's been one that I've been thinking about for a while. And what we're going to be talking about is an exercise. I think you could call it it's definitely an exercise that I have found to be so transformative. It's kind of like the best of both worlds because doing this exercise or this technique, it's part manifestation and it's part mindset. So in a way, it is you're calling in your dream future, but it's also a really powerful tool to get out of a negative headspace, to look at your challenges or difficult situations that you're going through and step out of it and think about it in a different way, take on a different perspective. This whole exercise is about thinking, believing, and acting as your future self or your highest self would act. And like I said, one, it's super powerful when it comes to manifesting. And I can claim this because I can feel it when I'm doing it. And I've been doing if you know me, you know I have tried like every manifestation technique out there. And this one, there is something about the energy of it that just, I know it's working. I know it's working. And then the other thing is I've been testing it whenever I'm in a negative headspace or find myself like ruminating on something or like getting into a spiral, and it pulls me right out of it. In fact, I'm going to share lots more on this and give you some personal examples, including one that just happened over the weekend and how this particular exercise pulled me out of it and just changed everything and changed my mindset completely. And then I'm also going to walk you through exactly how to do it, and I'll share the steps and the why this technique is so powerful. We're now going to start thinking about this dream future that you have and this exercise that I was talking about, which I am going to I'm going to coin as the future you technique. This is there's probably lots of iterations of this exercise on the internet. Maybe you have even tried something like this. I'm not claiming like I own this or it's proprietary, but I am going to share that I haven't read about this in a book. Usually when I'm doing manifestation exercise, which I do a lot of, I see something on social media, or it's one of my hundreds of spiritual manifesting law of attraction books, and I'll practice those exercises. This one I haven't seen done exactly like this, but I am telling you, it has been so helpful for me. So it's the future you exercise. And I'll just start by giving a little bit of context. When I first started doing this exercise more consistently, if you know me, I've been very open about sharing that I can get in my head a lot. like I tend to overthink things, and not all things. Like in business, I'm actually very decisive and I move very quickly. But when it's something more personal, I get in my head. I'm just very analytical. And I think part of it is I subconsciously think I can think my way out of it. But what ends up happening is I think and think and think and think and think. And then I'm just like further into the problem than finding any kind of solution. And so when I first started my business, or I guess this was like a couple years ago, I was in my head about a lot of things. Part of me was like in my head about just the future of the business and leaving the corporate world, which I've been, 15 years in a very quote unquote, like secure job, knowing exactly what I need to do every day, like not feeling the pressure because I knew it. I had been doing it for so long. So when I first started this business, there's all this unknown. Like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know where this is, what's next, like what this is going to look like in a month, let alone 6 months, a year. And in the beginning of my business, it was growing fast. I was able to get clients really quickly, but in the back of my head, there was always this like, can I sustain this? Can I sustain this rapid growth? Um, and then the other part was like being on social media all the time and being a people pleaser with also this kind of incessant worry about what people think of me. That would I would get into my head about that a lot. And the validation, I kept wanting external validation because I needed it. I didn't know if I was doing it right. So there was this like little bit of a I always trusted myself, but there was this kind of in the back of my head fear. And then even just with like silly things like friendships and being liked or being included and all, I would just get thoughts that would swirl around my head. And I knew that something needed to change. And I was like, I need to manifest myself out of feeling like this because it's holding me back. Like, I don't actually have time for feeling like this if I want to do all the things that I want to do and be a really present mom to my 3 young kids and be like a fun wife to my husband and like live the life that I actually want to live. And that's the whole reason I'm creating this business is to manifest a life that lights me up. And if I keep thinking like this, it's slowing me down. And so I started like early on just always asking myself, okay, well, Julia, how would your future self think? How would Julia in 5 years from now think? Would she be ruminating on whether, enough people liked this post? Would she um would she act all like I don't like scared when XYZ happened? Would she it was always those questions. How would you and the answer always came through very clear. No, she wouldn't do this. This is how she would do it. This is how and it started thinking about just how would she act? How would this future Julia? Sometimes I talk to my clients about this a lot and I ask the question, how would your future or your highest self, how would she approach this? But I actually like thinking about how would your future self, like future 5 years from now, because that feels closer. That feels like more tangible. That feels like you know that person a little more than higher self sometimes feels like, okay, I don't know, like the spirit above me. I don't know how much, yeah, it's all love and light on the other side. But the future self feels like I could kind of see how she would act. I can kind of see how she would think. And so I started doing this. And one day, I just pulled out my journal when I was like really in my head about something, and I wrote down literally like how she would respond to this situation. And but instead of writing it in the first person, which when we talk about scripting for manifestation, you write in the first person, like I wake up in the morning and it's 11 a.m. and or whatever, 6 a.m. and the birds are chirping and you walk through your day, and that is also a powerful manifestation technique. But for me, it's really helpful to start in the third person because then you're not trying to pretend like you're someone else. You're actually thinking about how would she act and feel. And so this one day I pulled out my journal and I just started writing, and I wrote like almost like I was describing someone else, but it was me in the future. And after I wrote this whole thing down, like how she would approach this situation that I was kind of ruminating over, or a decision, I don't even remember exactly what the first one was. It was a decision I had to make or something. I had this like powerful realization, and it was like, I can be that now. I can be her now. I can just choose to think and act like her now. I can start to embody those qualities that she possesses now. And so I took this journal entry, and this was maybe a couple years ago when I first did it, and I just rewrote it word for word, but in the first person. So I took every time it said she, I changed it to I. And when I read it back to myself, I started to feel it. And that's what I mean by like, I started the feeling of knowing that it's working. I just started to feel like her just a little bit, not completely. But over the weeks that followed, I kept just adding to the list. And I would first start writing in the third person, like she would do this, or how would she approach this? She would do it, and then switching it to the first person. And it was working. And everything started to shift just a little bit. And I was starting to feel more like this future self, this person that I knew I could step into and one day would become. Once, the business was to a point where it had scaled and I didn't have the fear anymore and I had let go of my worries about social media. Like I just started to slowly become that person. It's kind of like the power of affirmations, but doing it by starting in the third person and thinking about her and then doing the switch, there was something in that process that was I find to be extremely helpful. And so I want to start with just kind of sharing why this works. What I've realized what it does is it sort of taps into your brain's ability to visualize first and embody the qualities of the person that you aspire to become or your future self. But when you write about it in the third person, you're creating the vision, this character, you could call it, in your brain that you can start to believe in. And I think it's this distance that allows you to see your future more objectively. Sometimes when we're just trying to jump right into affirmations or right into scripting, we don't really believe it because it's not totally us yet. But when you can be more objective without the limitations of doubt, unworthiness, or anything that might be holding you back, it just becomes easier. So then the real magic comes into play, right? That when you rewrite it into the first person, that shift in perspective, going from she is to I am, that helps you to start to feel and act as if you are that person. Your brain just can't tell the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. And so this exercise just begins to rewire your mindset and behavior to align with that future self. And the science behind it is our brains are wired for self-fulfilling prophecies. So this is manifestation. But when we constantly think and act in ways that align with our desired future, so when we act in ways that align with who our future self is, who's already living that dream life, we start to build these neural pathways that are going to reinforce our own behaviors, those behaviors. So the more you think and act like your future self, the more your brain believes it and the more you are likely to manifest it. So I want to just share quickly how you actually do this exercise in a step-by-step process, because you know me, I like the step-by-step to follow, the how-tos. This is the how-to part of the woo. Okay, you're going to start with a journal. Start with a journal, any old journal, doesn't have to be fancy, just some place to write. And you're going to think about your future self. If you want to make this exercise even more powerful, I'm going to share a meditation in a little bit, and I'm going to explain. I actually created a meditation specifically for this, but if you don't do the meditation, this is what you do. You take out the journal and you think about your future self, and you just start writing about her in the third person or him. Who is she? Who is he? Who are they? How do they think? How do they act? How do they feel? Write about this person in the third person. So, for example, if I were writing about my future self, I would say she is confident in her decisions. She approaches challenges with calmness. She is incredibly present and focused. And she radiates positivity. So write all about her. And if you need some prompts, I can share prompts. I have lots of prompts around this. Then you take that, what you wrote, and you're going to switch it to the first person. So you're going to just rewrite it completely. So, for example, when you, instead of saying she is confident in her decisions, I am confident in my decisions. I approach challenges with calmness. I radiate positivity. I am present. I am focused. This is where you start to embody those qualities. And then you read it back to yourself. You read it back to yourself. Read it again, read it what you've written in the first person out loud if you can. I always think speaking it out loud, there's something to the like vibration of your voice. But you're going to feel the energy of these words and let them sink in. You can read this to yourself over and over and over again. This is kind of like affirmations, right? But it's more than affirmations, because this is the person that you want to become. This is the future self that you envision. And it goes beyond, I am powerful, I am strong, but it's how you think and it's how you act and it's what you believe in, it's what you stand for. It's all those things. And then you keep adding to it. So over time, just keep adding to your list. Write more about your future self, first in the third person, and then switch it to the first person. And watch how your thoughts and actions start to align with that future vision you have for yourself. It's really cool. By the way, I like to think about myself in 3 to 5 years in the future. I don't want to go too far out because I don't need to know how Julia, 80 years old, thinks and feels. She's going to be really wise. But I want to think about myself in 3, 4, 5 years. Because that's when I think I'm going to be, at my prime. I don't know. And it keeps switching. So think about the person that you want to be and how old is she, however many years out that is. Okay. I want to share a quick example of how I used this exercise recently. In fact, it was literally this past weekend or last week. And I'm going to share it with you because it was a real test of this practice. It's also a little bit of a vulnerable story, I think. I want to be transparent though, and share like what I'm actually going through and some of the negative thoughts that I have that can really derail me. So I'll start with what happened. So last week, I released a podcast interview with a woman, a gifted psychic named Jessica Stone. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's a cool one. I loved it. I loved the interview. I thought it was really fascinating. We talk about psychic abilities and the future and unlocking like all these new ways of communicating and channeling. And I'm just like really fascinated by this stuff. I still don't know how to channel. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a medium. I don't claim to be. But I'm super interested in this stuff. All things spirituality, really. And so anyway, at one point in the interview, and it was a long interview, and there were so many cool stories that Jessica shared, and she is tapped in. Like I can tell when someone is tapped in. Like I've followed her for a long time. She is changed the lives of so many women. In fact, after I released the episode, I had a bunch of people DM me being like, "Oh, I've taken one of Jessica's courses. She's incredible." But anyway, my team and I decided to post a clip from this interview on Instagram and then also on TikTok. And in this clip, I asked Jessica, I was like, so what is it going to be like in the year 3000? And she talked about how she channels a girl named Anna who lives in the future and described how everyone is part AI unless you choose to be a natural. And she was like, there's no war of technology or anything. If you listen to the episode, you remember this part. It was like really mind blowing. So anyway, we took this little clip and we put it on social media. And last week, it was the last week of summer. My kids just went back to school today. Which, oh my God, my middle son went to kindergarten, which is like, oh, I can't believe it's all like just the end of like an era, I guess the start of a new era. But anyway, last week we decided to take one last mini family trip. We drove down to Newport Beach on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We stayed at a fun hotel. We rented bikes. We went to Balboa Island. We did all this like really cool stuff. And I used to live in Newport Beach right after college. And so I took them to like my old favorite places and restaurants. And it was just really fun. And anyway, the day that I left for my trip, my team had posted the reel on TikTok. I'm trying to be active on TikTok. It's a little bit of a scary place for me. I'm not gonna lie. I feel safer in Instagram and my little bubble. But we posted it, and then it was like the afternoon, last Wednesday afternoon, and my assistant texts me, and she goes, "Oh my God, Julia, the reel is going viral on TikTok." And I was like, "Oh, whoa, cool." And I didn't check right then because I'm out and about with the family, but I looked a couple hours later when we were back at the hotel, and I checked my phone, and I'm like, oh my God, I went into full panic mode. I'm looking at this video, and not only has the clip like reached 100,000 views in however many hours, but it's going up by like 10,000, 20,000. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I don't know why, and maybe this is obviously something that I have to get comfortable with, but I felt really unsafe, like almost like I felt like a need to protect my kids or something. Like all of a sudden I just felt so exposed. It felt really overwhelming because not only were the views going up, but the comments were coming in, like piling in. And I only looked at a few, I swear, because I know myself and I can't handle the like too many negative comments. And it wasn't like they were all so negative, but it was the comments that I saw were like, "Oh my God, this is laughable. This is what I call psychosis." Someone then a bunch of people were were commenting. This is kind of funny in retrospect because I said to her, "What is it going to be like in the year 3000?" All these people are commenting like basically referencing the Jonas Brothers song Year 3000. So they're like, are we going to be living underwater? And then like how's my great 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 granddaughter doing and things like that. But there were a lot of negative comments like, "Oh my God, this is a joke." And then people making fun of my response to her, and just anyway, I was like, I need this down. I don't like this. I feel so uncomfortable. So I pulled it down. I had my assistant like actually take it down, and I took it down on Instagram too, which that was a reactive response, I realized, but I also just wanted to enjoy time with my family, and it was just too much for me. So we took it down. But the next day I was like so in my head about this. And and the clip, it wasn't even about me. Like it was her. I asked the question, and then she goes into the story. But what I started getting into my head about was, I was like, what is this? What does this mean about me? Am I going to lose credibility? I was being like, I think in retrospect, just, it was all about me. I was just like, people are judging me now. They're going to think I'm a whack job. I went way too far. This isn't aligned with even my belief system. Are people going to think that this is what I believe? Because it's not necessarily what I believe. I don't know what's going to happen in the year 3000. I just thought it was an interesting concept and fascinating. And I do believe her. I think, but again, I don't know. And so I just started thinking like, am I going to be associated with like channeling the future when this isn't like my thing? Like again, did I go too far? And I'm there trying to enjoy this time with my family, and I'm like ruining it by being in my head about this. And I'm trying to talk to Alex about it, and he's like, "Julia, who cares?" And I'm like, "I do. I care." And he's like, "But, you took it down." And And it doesn't matter. Like, this is what happens. And it was a controversial or like polarizing topic. And I couldn't get out of it. And then I remembered this exercise. And I had to excuse myself from the family. And I'm going to take my phone right now because I wrote it down because I didn't have a journal. And I'm like, I don't know how to get out of this. So I need to think about how Julia in 3 to 5 years from now, how would she act? Because at this point, if I really want to up level this podcast and if I really want to take it to the place where I want to take it to be one of the top spiritual podcasts and to have that kind of impact and to be serving people and to be so aligned with my mission and like if I want that kind of exposure, if I really do, I have to be open to this. I can't believe that I'm just going to stay in this little safe bubble of people going, go, Julia, or like, that's awesome. I love everything you do. Like, that's not realistic. And I realize it. But in order to get out of my head, I had to start thinking like someone else, thinking like my future self. And so this is what I wrote. I started with just like, what would she do? Julia, what would she do right now? And I said, she wouldn't think anything of it. She would have posted it because she thought it was interesting and a fascinating idea and kind of fun. She wouldn't read the comments. She doesn't have time for that. Plus, she knows that any negative comments are just a reflection of people's own wounds and of people's own stuff. She would stay focused on being present with her family because that's what matters. She stays focused on enjoying the gift of today. She wouldn't get wrapped up in what's happening on social media. She is so far past that. She understands that it means nothing. She is in full self-trust because she believes that if she is kind and if she does the right thing and she moves from a space of wanting to serve and help people, of wanting to spread positivity, then that's what will happen. She only cares that she is serving other people and that her family and the people she loves are happy. She is confident in who she is. She trusts the universe has her back. She trusts that she's safe. She trusts in the perfect unfolding of everything. She's truly at peace with who she is. She feels calm, collected, and aligned. She feels energetic and vibrant. She has a deep knowing that she's on the right path and everything keeps working out. And I also mentioned she would also say, don't take down a video that is going viral. So anyway, I wrote all that and then I flipped it to the first person and I started telling myself that she moves from a space of believing that it's all working out. She trusts in herself. The only thing she cares about is that she's spreading positivity and that her family and the people she cares about are happy. Anyway, I did this whole exercise and it was like, whew, just shifted me right on out of it. It was unbelievable. It was truly the perspective shift that I needed and the energetic shift that I needed. And I had the most amazing rest of our little mini vacay. We had so much fun. And it just goes to show that this isn't just a manifestation technique, but it's truly a mindset technique. And that's how you can use it too. I think a few other ways you could do this. I mean, one is public speaking. Public speaking, I think, is a perfect example. And in fact, last week, right before we left for our little mini trip, I did a manifestation workshop, a virtual one for Spotify. And now I've done lots of virtual workshops for corporations and teams and stuff, but Spotify felt like so big. This is Spotify. And also, I mean, my podcast is hosted on Spotify. I use the product all the time. I just think it's an amazing company. And I was doing this workshop for their marketing team, which is like a sexy team that does all their experiential events. And so I was like a little nervous. And what I did in that moment, I mean, I didn't write the whole exercise, but I was like, all right, what is Julia, who's running workshops or on stage speaking to hundreds of thousands of people, how would she approach this? It's like, she would go in so confident. She would go in so poised. She would go in excited to just connect with people. And that's what I did. And so if you're nervous about an upcoming speech, like write about how your future self, who delivers speeches flawlessly and with confidence and poise, how would she act? How would she be preparing? And then rewrite it in the first person. So, it's like I am confident when I speak in public. I am poised. I captivate audiences and I speak with clarity. If you're facing a challenge in your career or you have to make a tough decision at work, this is another great example. Um, write about how your future self would handle it and then flip it to the first person. I handle challenging situations with grace and understanding. I communicate openly. I share things that align with my goals. I make choices that align with my goals. You could also use this with personal relationships or difficult relationships. Oops. Sorry, I don't know what that noise is. So whether it's a familial relationship or a friendship or a partnership, describe how your future self, who navigates relationships with grace and understanding, how they would act, right? And then you make it personal. So she would navigate her relationship with her sister or her friends. She would do this with grace and understanding and an open heart. She would be honest and she continuously fosters deep relationship, and then you flip it, right? I navigate my relationships with grace and understanding. I communicate openly. I am honest and I foster these deep connections with the people in my life. This exercise is again all about aligning your thoughts and your beliefs and actions with the person who you want to become. It's a tool you can use in any situation, I think. And whether you're feeling stuck or unmotivated, motivated or overwhelmed or unsure of yourself or whatever it is, how would your future self act? What would she do? What would she think? What would be her next move? Um, so anyway, the key takeaways here are with this future life exercise, you are visualizing and then also embodying, and then through that becoming the person you want to be. It's a tool for manifestation. It's also a way to navigate the challenges and things that you're dealing with in your life. I actually, so a few weeks ago, one of my old clients and friends and someone in my community, Michelle, hi Michelle, if you're listening, she sent me a meditation where you meet your future self. And it was a really cool experience. I could see her and kind of like felt and experienced how she walked and moved. And I got to I went into her house and saw it all. And anyway, I loved it so much because right after that I had a real I could feel her energy, and so I did this exercise and I just wrote about her. I wrote about what I saw and who she was, and then I flipped it to the first person, and it was just a very cool experience. And so I decided to record a future self meditation for you so that you can get a little taste and meet your future self and then move into doing this exercise on your journal. So what I recommend, and I'm going to include the link to download this meditation in the show notes, is I want you to do this meditation, go somewhere quiet. It's a short meditation. It's just a few minutes. Meet your future self. Really start to notice what she's like, how she acts, how she moves. And then directly after that, pull out your journal and start writing about her. Start writing about what you noticed. Start writing about how she carries herself, how she thinks, what she believes in, what she stands for, how she moves in this world, what her relationships are like, what she looks like, what her health is like, just the vibes she gives off. Anything you can think of, just write about her. And then rewrite it in the first person to make it about you now and embody it. And then take that and read it to yourself as often as you need. Add to it, take away from it, but let this be a powerful, powerful manifestation tool for you to start to embody that future self, that future you that you know you can step into, that future you who is living their most abundant, aligned dream life. All right. So, key takeaways here is this exercise really helps you visualize, embody, and become the person that you want to be. It's a tool for manifestation, but it's also a way to navigate the challenges and emotional triggers that you might face today. Um, Again, if you want to meet your future self and do this exercise, download the Future You meditation by clicking on the link in the show notes. I can't wait to hear how this exercise affects you and hopefully really helps you embody that future life, that future you that you want to become. Thank you so much for listening. I am sending you so much love and light. If you love this episode and want to share it with someone, click the share button below. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.